Hi there, welcome to this new tutorial from SH Millinery, and today we're going to be freeform blocking felt. And I've got two felts here. I've got a hood that actually I started making something else and didn't turn out so well, so I'm going to use this. And I've also got this blue cape line. So we're going to use those today. Now when I say freeform, yes, I have got blocks, but this is just a dolly block, a plain dolly block. And although I've got a cloche block out, we're not actually going to block to this shape. So we're going to alter our style as we work. So what I also need first off is some hot water. So here is my bowl and here is my hot water. Let's see if it's, yeah, I can just about get my hand in there. So I'm going to soak this first felt in the hot water till it becomes pliable. So I'm going to just push it down for a moment and let it soak the water up, and then I'm going to take it out and wring it out really well, because otherwise it'd be soaking wet and very difficult to dry. So I wrung it out, I'll put my water away to one side. I also brought some PVA stiffener in, but I think these felts don't need it really. They are pre-stiffened, so I'm not going to worry too much about stiffening them. Now I'm going to use the cloche block first off. Now normally you should be covering this with cling film, but I forgot to bring the cling film in with me, so we're not going to be doing that, which is a bit of a nuisance, but there we are. What I've had to do is move from the studio to a free room in the house to do this video because I don't have enough room in the studio. So anyway, it's nice and stretchy and wet now, so I'm going to pull it over the block. And when I say pull, you have got to really stretch, because you want it to fit really well and tight on the top of the block. Now let me look, see which is the back and the front. This is the front of the block and this is the back. So I've pulled it down and now I need to fix that in place. Now I'm going to use one of my one of these blocking springs, and I do show on a video, I'll put a card up for that, how to make these. So I'm going to use one of these as my blocking spring because they're easier. Pull it right down over, and again that pulls the felt down as well. Pull it right down so it's right over the block. Now I look, and that looks good at the top. Now what I want to do is do an upturned brim. This block has got a downturned brim, but I don't want a downturned, I want an upturn. So I'll just stretch the felt out a bit so that I can see what I've got. Now for this, I'm going to use a bit of hose pipe, which I've threaded a string through. So it's just a piece of hose pipe with a string threaded through that I can tighten or loosen depending on what I want. So I'm going to put this over the top of the block to one side, like that, and I'm going to curl up my brim round this. So just stretching and curling it up over. So I want to get a decent curve, and I want to be able to stop it from flopping down. So what I'm going to do is put some pins just in underneath. I don't know if you can zoom in on this bit. Just put them underneath so that they prop the felt up. There we are, like that. Just stops it flopping back down again. So I've done that on one side, and I just adjust, curl it round a bit, and because I'll be trimming this later and wiring the side. Now that's the front, which I want to dip down slightly. So I'm going to put a pin in the front just to dip it down a bit. There we are. And on the other side, I want it to come up only very slightly. So again, I'm just going to ease it with my hands, pulling the felt as I go. And I might twizzle my hose pipe round. And also what I'm going to do actually is I need it a little bit tighter on this block, so I'm going to pull the knot tighter. There we are. Put my finger on it to keep it in place. And so we've got it up one side and we've got it up very slightly on the other side, but I don't want to actually shape it any more than that upturn. And I want it, what do I want it at the back? I think I'll have it up. So, because it's quite a thick felt, it will actually stay in place. But I am going to put some pins in and just prop it again with the pins on the block so that it's in a reasonable shape. So if you need to upturn, you can do it with a bit of perseverance and a bit of pipe. And right, so I look at it, I check it, is there anything else I want to do to it? Do I need it to come round forward more at the front? But no, I'm quite happy with that. I think when it dries and I've trimmed it, it's going to make a very nice hat. So we will have a look at that later, obviously when it's dried. So I'm going to put that to one side. And here's my dolly block and my large blue felt, which again I'm going to have to soak. So in the water, and again this is a pre-stiffened felt, so I don't think I need to add any stiffening to it at all because it'll end up too stiff and unwearable. So just soak the felt. I mean, a lot of you will have learned how to steam felt and you may prefer to steam it. I just find it's quicker and easier to wet the whole felt than to spend an hour steaming. So, get all the water out. I make funny faces while I do this. There we are. Put the water to one side. I have no idea what I'm going to do with this yet. So we're just going to play and see what happens. So I'm going to pull it over the block, and again the block should be covered in cling film, but I never quite got around to bringing it in the room with me. So I've pulled it onto the top and I'm going to put a blocking spring at a slight angle because I want the front up and the back down a bit more, and I'm going to look at it and see what I want to do with it. So you pull and stretch. Now I could fold it and fold it again and have a pleated side. That might be quite nice, as you can see. I might want to do individual pleats, so I could pleat it. And then what I do, if I'm doing lots of pleats, is just put a clip onto the top of the block, onto the top of the pleat rather. So I'm doing this back to front so I can't see what I'm doing. So let me have a look. I could do pleats all the way around. And I would have to obviously spend some time arranging those pleats so that they're equidistant and they go in a nice fan shape. Let's see how we go with that. Now if they're not perfectly flat, that doesn't really matter because we can iron them after the event. So often what you'll do is you'll shape the hat and then once it's dry take it off and steam press those down so that they're really neat and tidy. What I have done in the past as well is if I want more of a ridge effect like that, I've put pipe cleaners down there, or I've stitched the pleat just with a tacking stitch to keep it in place until I've finished with it. But I'm not going to pleat this one, I don't think. I'm just going to have this as an interesting up and down shape. So I'm going to pull and stretch and pull again and see what I can come up with. And what I'll do is, again, afterwards, I will change all this and trim it. So I get a rough idea of what shape I want, and then when it's dry, I shall trim it. So I'm going to finish now for a minute because I'm going to carry on playing with this and you'll see what I do with it, and we'll come back a bit later. Thanks. Day 2. The hats have dried, and luckily it was a lovely sunny day yesterday, so I put them out to dry, and now we're going to have a look and see what's happened with them. So first of all, I'm going to take this one, take all the pins out that I had. I've already taken the tubing off. Now I'm going to just take the blocking spring off and see how it is on the inside. Right, now before I shape it, I've got to have a good look and see how I want it. And what I'm going to do is a rough shaping with the scissors. It's better if you've got it high up, really, on the block or on a pot or something, so you can see what it's going to look like. But I'm going to do a rough shape, and then I'm going to measure it out and shape it. So, I mean, if you aren't confident doing this, I suggest marking it with chalk first, just to see how it's going to come out. So we'll just chop the minimum off, because if you go too mad, you've ruined it, and then you've got a hat without a brim. So let's have a look. So just gonna. Right. So here we have it. Now, I'm quite happy with the brim that side, and I'm quite happy with it that side. The front I'm not so keen on, so I'm just going to press it quickly with a cloth. Give it a quick steam so that I can reshape it perhaps. Let's have a look. That's better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire the brim and finish it off, and I'll show you that later in the video, but I'm quite happy with the shape and I think it's going to make a nice hat. So there's our little brimmed bowler, and now we're going to look at the blue hat. Now, as I said, I just made it up as I went along. The nice thing about millinery is you can just get creative and see what happens, play about with it. I decided to do some pleats on this side, and I'm going to have to press them. And also what I'll do is put a stitch, very firm stitch, in the top of the pleats so that it keeps them together and they stay nice shape. But I'm looking at it, and I'm going to prop it up here if possible. And I've got to figure out how I want to cut this. And again, don't go too mad and then regret it. So let's see how we go. Now with this one, I'm not going to wire the edge. I'm going to leave it as a cut edge, so I'm going to have to do a much neater cut a bit later on, and I'm going to perhaps embroider the edge. So we'll see how we get on. Now at the back of the hat, I want it to come up slightly because there's nothing worse than having a hat that's so far down on the neck that it catches. So I'm going to go up and round, and it also gives it a nice shape. So you'll see as I turn it round, and I've got way too much on this side, so I'm going to cut round on the pleats. So I just want to get the rough shape in position, and then I can tweak it. So I've cut the back, I've cut the side, and I'm starting to cut the front. But I think what I need is just a bit more of an angle here. So I'm gonna go quite mad and cut off quite a bit there and see how it looks. Right, a bit more. So I'm going to play about with that, and I'm going to show you that later in the rest of the video. So I just wanted to show you quickly how you can freeform block and do what you fancy. I'll press the pleats and see how they come out, and then I'll take this all to the studio to finish off. So a little cloth on the pleats, bit of a press. I might try and press all three at once. That might be conducive to a nice pressed pleat. So get those all down in a line. The iron's a best friend. Yeah, so there we are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go away now and just fiddle with all this, and you'll see it in the video. Now off to the sewing machine, and this is the grey felt. I've put a wire around the edge and I've decided to stitch this by machine. I use extra strong thread. I adjust the tension on the bobbin and the thread to give more leeway. And I also set the needle to the left-hand side so that it doesn't catch the wire. On the blue hat, I'm using an embroidery thread stitch on the machine again with extra strong thread and a large needle, size 16. And I've speeded up the film, but you do have to go very slowly. I like stitching because it then gives you a nice edge for cutting round and trimming and getting it all very even. And then because I've cut the edge, I then go over it with sandpaper so that it takes away the cut edge look and gives it a nice soft edge. Then it's brushed all over with a brush to get rid of all the fluff. And now I decide how I'm going to proceed. I've decided I'm going to stitch the pleats, but I don't stitch them on the top. I stitch them underneath so that you can't see it on the top. And then part of that will be hidden by the sweatband. Now, I've got a cutting machine. I've got two actually, a Silhouette and a brother machine. And I've cut out some wool felt shapes that I've then put one bonder web on. And I'm going to iron these onto the hat. Now, they probably will need some stitching or some extra gluing, but I'll bond web them on first, iron them on first, and then go from there. So there's the finished blue hat. I may very well fiddle about with the front of it a bit more. I don't know if it's a bit high, but I'm happy with it overall. And here's the little grey bowler with the upturned brim. Now I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I'm sure I'll be doing more freeforming in the future. So do subscribe, and hope forward to seeing you soon. Okay, bye.